In 2025, the persecution of Christians remains a critical human rights issue affecting millions globally. From violent massacres and imprisonment to systemic discrimination and social marginalization, Christians face a range of hostile conditions, particularly in nations ruled by Islam, Hinduism, and those under communist regimes. In Muslim-majority and Hindu-majority regions, Christians often face job discrimination, denial of aid, and social exclusion. Converts, especially from Islam and Hinduism, are disowned or attacked by their families and communities. These figures are often conservative, and the numbers could be double. But so far, from 2024 to 2025, we find that over 5,000 Christians have been killed for faith-related reasons. Over 6,000 Christians have been imprisoned, mostly women, for sexual slavery. Over 2,000 churches attacked or closed. The top 15 most dangerous countries for Christians nowadays are North Korea, Somalia, Nigeria, Pakistan, Eritrea, Libya, Yemen, Sudan, Iran, Afghanistan, India, China, Mozambique, Algeria, and Saudi Arabia. A lot of the so-called asylum seekers Europe is importing come from these countries, who, by all means, are raised to hate and prosecute Christians. Yes, because sadly, we're not bringing over the Christians who are being prosecuted. No women, no children, no elderly. Mostly Islamic men of military age. Does that make any sense to you? In an ongoing massacre that never seems to end, in Nigeria's plateau state Delwata and surrounding areas, hundreds of Christian civilians, including children and the elderly, were burnt alive by Fulani jihadist groups during the last weeks, also displacing thousands. 9 villages were forcibly occupied, with land and livestock seized. So far, in 2025, confirmed reports show approximately 600 to 800 Christians killed in Nigeria due to violent attacks in different states. The overall situation remains grim and likely underreported, with advocacy groups warning that actual figures may be significantly higher.
Hello. So, this is what is going on in Jaw right now. People are running away because Fulani are about to enter our village. We don't know what we have done wrong, but people are dying. People are busy running. You can see me, I'm in the picture, so I don't know what's going on. I'm inside the picture. You see people are running with their children. Right now they are shooting guns in our place. People are trying to escape with their children.
My people, my family members, they died in this house. 11. And some died in the other store. 8. Some died here. My whole family members that died yesterday, day before yesterday, on that very day, there were 20. That is my own family members. I'm not talking about any other thing. That is my own family members. This is my store. Those shops are my stores. Those places are being burned.
Please walk.
Those places, this place is being burned. Here and up, my house is up there. That place also is burned. And the store where I pack my goods, I store my goods everywhere has burned. They burned my clothes, they burned everything, they burned our food, all my family members. What we came out with is our clothes, what we wear. And I, standing here, this is what I came out with. And this is the only thing that I have. There's no anything with me.
Can you recount the incident as it happened that particular day? Tell us what happened. What did you hear? What did you see?
On that very day, rain started in the evening. So we entered, I slept there. So I was sleeping around 10:20. We had gunshot at back there.
The Fulani are one of Africa's largest and most widespread ethnic groups, with a population estimated between 25 to 40 million people. They are traditionally pastoralists, cattle herders, and traders found across West and Central Africa, from Senegal and Guinea in the west to Cameroon, Chad, Niger, Nigeria, and Sudan in the east. They comprise different clans, many of which adhere to radical Islamist ideology. Christian leaders in Nigeria believe herdsmen attacks on their communities are inspired by their desire to forcefully take over Christian lands and impose Islam as the only religion in the region. They are increasingly morphing into a very dangerous nomadic armed militia with very bad intentions. The governor of Benue stated that Fulani herdsmen, Boko Haram, and Islamic State affiliates are operating in conjunction, sharing weaponry and a strategic agenda. The violence is far from random. Increasingly, it appears organized and coordinated, with militants carrying out targeted attacks, sometimes even declaring those operations as jihad. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, where 70 Christians had been massacred, beheadings included, months ago, there was another serious incident. On July 27, 2025, the same ADF Balaku faction carried out a nighttime attack on the Saint Anouarit Catholic Church in Komanda, Ituri province. Up to 50 civilians were killed, among them 19 women and 9 children. Around 13 people were injured and several children were abducted. The victims were attending a night vigil for the church's 25th anniversary. Attackers used machetes and firearms. Afterwards, they burned homes and stores. The global persecution of Christians is intensifying. While violence persists in parts of Africa and Asia, subtle forms of repression, legal, digital, and cultural, are growing in the West, clearly part of the satanic agenda. Sadly, without stronger international accountability mechanisms and localized advocacy, the situation is expected to deteriorate further.
Dumisani Washington, an expert on Christian persecution in Africa, joins us now. Dumisani, we talked last week about 60 Christians being killed. So if you're thinking this is the same video, it's not. This is a separate video about another massacre. Dumisani, what is going on?
And Raj, less than 2 weeks ago, 50 were killed in Nigeria, right? So this is a completely separate one from that. What's happening, Raj, is it's connected to a much larger narrative, which has to do with a global Islamic caliphate. Sometimes people hear that term, they go, oh, that's a fairy tale. No, this is real. The Islamist groups, whether they're Boko Haram in Nigeria, right there, right, Al-Shabaab in Kenya and Somalia, Hamas in Gaza, right, the connective tissue is this Islamist vision of basically subjugating everyone who does not bow down to Sharia, who does not bow down to this interpretation of this Islamic faith. This, when I say this interpretation, as Raj, as you know, the number one death toll is actually other Muslims. Other Muslims are actually killed in these regions as well when it comes to the violence that's happening from either Fulani, which just happened here, or Boko Haram in other areas.
So Dumisani, the pushback would be, you know, in Gaza, it's not religiously motivated. It's an occupation. In Nigeria, it's a land dispute. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, it's about rare earth minerals. But you're saying that this is part of a larger narrative, correct?
All of those things can be true at the same time, Raj. In other words, yes, does Hamas want Israel destroyed and they consider it part of their land, if you will? Yeah. But the heart of that is not about land. It's about they're saying we want to kill, not just destroy Israel, but to kill all the Jews in the diaspora, right? They're committed to this global mindset of destroying Jews, Christians, and others who don't subscribe to their beliefs. So unfortunately for us, Raj, particularly in the West, those other issues, as you brought them up, they become the distraction. As you may remember, the article I sent you last week, we didn't get touched on it, is from it was Newsweek, is a young man from Nigeria. He said during the Biden administration, they said the problem was global warming, right? It was because of climate change, right? Climate change was the reason why they were coming and taking land. And all these are the things that they throw out to Westerners, hoping that we get distracted by that. But the real issue, this is a religious war. And for us Christians, we understand this is what our Jewish friends would call Amalek. Amalek, which was the tribe that wanted to destroy Israel from the weakest and the smallest to everyone else. This is what's going on right now, but they want to do this across the globe.
Group 764 is an offshoot of the Order of Nine Angles, otherwise known as O9A, a decentralized neo-Nazi Satanist extremist network dating back to the 1970s. O9A promotes violent, accelerationist ideologies, including ritual transgression and sacrifice. 764 channels O9A aesthetics and doctrine, including extremist rhetoric and taboo-breaking content, into a digital cult that traffics in child sexual abuse material, promotes self-harm, and encourages violent acts against children. Arrests associated with 764 and O9A have occurred across Germany, Spain, Italy, the UK, Brazil, and the United States, highlighting international coordination. Their activity spans child exploitation, murder plots, bomb threats, incitement to suicide, and even planned satanic sacrifices. Group 764 isn't just about child sexual abuse material. It's also a terror threat. The United States DOJ describes it as a nihilistic, violent extremist group, seeding violence, self-harm, blackmail, and manipulation among minors. A violent splinter group called No Lives Matter emerged from 764 and has been involved in stabbings, shootings, and indiscriminate violence across North America and Europe. For example, this year we have the following incidents. United Kingdom, January. Cameron Finnegan jailed for 6 years. Charges include encouraging suicide, child sexual abuse material possession, and terrorism-related activity linked to 764. Italy, February. Teen arrested in Bolzano for terrorism involvement, child pornography, explosives, and weapons. Allegedly planned a snuff film. Kentucky, February. Jairo Jaime Tinajero pled guilty to conspiracy to murder, racketeering, and child sexual abuse material. Spain, February. Hugo Figueroa arrested after mass shooting and bombing threats in Valencia, linked to both 764 and O9A. Florida, March. Jack Rocker was sentenced to 7 years for possession of 8,300 illicit images of child sexual abuse material. Brazil, May. A group was arrested for planning a terrorist attack at a Lady Gaga concert, armed with explosives, and allegedly planning a satanic child sacrifice. Germany, June. A 20-year-old Iranian, identified as White Tiger, was arrested in Hamburg on charges including murder, rape, and attempted murder. After 20 years at the FBI, Pat McMonigal had seen more violence than most, but it was his investigation of 764, an online network pressuring children to engage in self-harm and sexual abuse, that forced him into early retirement. McMonigal, who worked as a hostage negotiator and counterterrorism coordinator, now warns parents about the satanic child grooming cult his team attempted to shut down. Its members seize on the anonymity of platforms like Roblox, Discord, and Telegram to target children. They start with the smaller pieces of control. They will tell kids to scratch names or swastikas in their bodies. They call it signs of the victimizer. They find children on suicide blogs and try to pull them aside to determine through a vetting process whether the kid is vulnerable or not. It's a gradual process. Then, eventually, they try to convince kids to kill themselves. Quote unquote. The FBI first alerted the public about the group in 2023, a year after a video of a 13-year-old boy's suicide outside a supermarket began circulating online. McMonigal, who lived a short drive from the boy's family in Tacoma, Washington State, was assigned to the case. He left the agency last year before he was able to track down the members of 764, who lured the boy from an art forum on Discord and went on to torment him for 7 months. For McMonigal, a father of 4, the 764 investigation was mentally and emotionally taxing and led him to seek psychological help. He recalled having to rewatch suicide videos, searching for clues about locations and a time frame. Members of 764, named after the zip code of its founder's home in Texas, tell children to send videos that are then exchanged among members and used for blackmail and extortion. McMonigal said he was aware of dozens of investigations during his time at the FBI. In May, the agency said there were 250 open investigations tied to the group. Victims are believed to be as young as 9, and there could be thousands. Perpetrators are thought often to be minors themselves, hiding behind fake, encrypted profiles.
Trinity hides her scars but can't unsee them.
I look in the mirror now and I still see that engraved in my chest. I really wish it wasn't there.
Trinity says she was forced to carve into her body by members of a violent online network of predators called 764. She says they also forced her to share sexually explicit images and even goaded her on when she attempted suicide.
I was having a mental breakdown and I lifted up my shirt and I said, look what they've done to me, look what they've done to me, I can't take this anymore.
Trinity reported her exploitation to the RCMP in Red Deer in July 2021. But she and her mother Maria didn't feel their case was being taken seriously until years later when a detective in North Carolina started looking into Trinity's case.
Hearing Trinity say, this is what he did to me, it still is hard to wrap my brain around.
For their safety, we're not using their last names.
Maybe they didn't take it serious that way because she was the one holding the knife, but it should have been taken serious.
Police say 764 and its related groups are terrorizing thousands of children around the world. Its members prowl on popular platforms and lure vulnerable minors into private groups where they push them to self-harm, hurt their pets, and kill themselves.
The most horrendous part about it is it's minors doing this to minors. And we're talking about 13-year-olds targeting 16-year-olds, 16-year-olds sextorting 11-year-olds.
Alberta police identified the first official 764 case in Canada last year when they arrested a 14-year-old in Lethbridge. Argentino says there are now likely members and victims in every province and territory, and the threat is moving offline. A recent school shooting in Nashville is linked to 764. Several stabbings in Sweden and the murder of an elderly woman in Romania are also tied to the group. The RCMP now calls 764 a terror threat.
There is active threat actors, including in Canada, that are actively engaging in violent acts on children and encouraging them to commit terroristic acts.
RCMP issued a public safety advisory last summer, 3 years after Trinity went to police.
I am glad that they're listening now. I don't ever want to watch another child suffer the way that my child suffered.
The FBI and the RCMP have spoken to the family in recent months, but no one has been held accountable for Trinity's abuse.
Launched July 25th, the UK's Online Safety Act allows government ministers extensive control over Ofcom's operations, potentially undermining the regulator's independence. Platforms face harsh penalties, fines up to £18 million, or 10% of global turnover, plus business disruption orders if they fail to manage harmful but legal content, quote unquote. This incentivizes preemptive censorship, where even lawful speech may be removed to avoid risk. Platforms will be required to prevent children from accessing harmful and age-inappropriate content. Nothing wrong with that, but here's the catch. Mandating platforms to scan encrypted messages for child sexual abuse material would break end-to-end encryption and threaten user privacy, even with harmless content and conversations. While implementation is deferred until technically feasible, the power itself remains embedded in law. Mandatory age verification sparkles significant privacy concerns. Users are increasingly required to provide sensitive personal information, such as facial recognition scans or government-issued IDs to third-party processors, raising the risk of data misuse and security breaches. From my perspective, it would be more transparent to legislate against pornography directly, rather than introducing covert mechanisms that conflate adult material with the regulation of misinformation on social media or other platforms. This follows the familiar problem-reaction-solution pattern, where the proposed remedy often encroaches on lawful personal freedoms under the pretext of addressing broadly acknowledged dangers. Carve-outs for media, journalism, and democratically important content will give powerful voices impunity, while ordinary users face stricter scrutiny. This already happens, but it will only get worse. Since enactment, nearly 300 people have been charged with speech-related offenses, including spreading fake news and issuing threatening communications. 67 have already been convicted. This is just another weapon used by the state to police the truth and censor the people.
In 1984 called, and he wants its Ministry of Truth back. The UK has created an elite police unit known as the National Internet Intelligence Investigations Team, dedicated to monitoring anti-migrant social media posts. Leaders claim its purpose is to detect early signs of potential unrest.
Unrest like this protest and counter-protest had erupted after a 38-year-old asylum-seeking migrant was charged with sexual assault for attempting to kiss a 14-year-old girl.
Despite the surveillance, UK's Prime Minister insists he still believes in free speech.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time here, so we're very proud about that. We protect it.
Well, with us now to react is Public News founder Michael Schellenberger. Michael, it is true that the United Kingdom and the West has a fairly robust tradition, long-standing when it comes to free speech, but I'm not so sure that's true anymore. I mean, there's story after story about people being thrown behind bars in the UK, even for tweets that they have deleted, with longer prison sentences than people who've committed actual physical violent crimes.
Yeah, that's right, Guy. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible story. I mean, there's a woman that's in prison for 31 months, which is 4 months longer than a child rapist is in prison. And what all she did was have a tweet up for 4 hours that she ended up taking down. This is a sweeping crackdown on free speech in Great Britain that we have not seen anything like in maybe hundreds of years. I mean, it's really astonishing. It's happening on multiple levels. Keep in mind, they were already arresting 30 people a day for wrong speech in Britain before this. Now they have a special police task force to constantly monitor social media, including X, formerly Twitter, and they can stop content based on age verification. So they can stop content saying, oh, this is harmful to mental health. And then X recently, just a few days ago, did block content on the basis of the British order to be able to identify if people were old enough to see it. So the other thing you mentioned there was the Islamophobia. They're not going to allow people to criticize mass migration. They're going to call it Islamophobia and a hate crime and prevent it. So this is George Orwell. I mean, George Orwell perfectly predicted this in 1984 when he wrote his book in the mid-40s.
You know, Michael, I was just in Europe at a conference and talking to a number of the people there. I mean, they are married to this idea that you have to monitor the internet, that you shouldn't be able to say certain basic things, including posting memes or things that are counter to what they believe politically in terms of the political party that's in charge. It's not just the UK, it's also the EU. They have this new Digital Services Act, which is complicated trade between the United States and the European Union, and even the deal that the president just got, it's an it's an issue that has not been satisfied according to the administration. So I don't see this going in a direction that's going to get better despite the pressure. I mean, the UK and the EU are really dedicated to this idea of putting people in prison for saying the wrong thing or thinking the wrong thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Europe's crackdown is maybe the worst in the world, but I mean, it's happening everywhere, and it's actually, unfortunately, accelerated since Trump was elected. So it's the EU, it's Britain, it's Ireland wants to read your private text messages. Canada, Brazil. The strategy here is to make it so that the social media companies will basically censor this content for everybody. So I think a lot of Americans go, well, I don't really care what happens in some other country, Britain or Europe. They should care because this is a strategy to basically encircle the United States and then have these social media companies pressure that they just censor this content for everybody. It's coming at a time when it's overtly political. The populist parties in Europe, just like Trump and the MAGA Republicans in the United States, are focused on mass migration. So they want to censor that content because it's been so politically powerful for these opposition leaders, including Germany, France, Romania. They're basically trying to prevent the opposition from competing at all, both through censorship and just keeping them off the ballot. I will just say one positive thing is that Trump today, yesterday he called out the Prime Minister in Britain. Today he's imposed serious tariffs on Brazil because of their censorship and because of their lawfare in preventing a presidential frontrunner, the last president, Bolsonaro, from competing in next year's elections.
Well, and also, just to add to that, I mean, Americans now have to worry about traveling to Europe and saying the wrong thing or posting the wrong thing or have posted the wrong thing many years ago. Being in these so-called Western countries, they could face arrests by the Europeans or the Canadians.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's how 1984 works, is they want you to be afraid of what you're going to say. They want you to be afraid of saying something controversial and then not expressing it. That's one of the most damaging things to free speech here. America was founded on the idea we have to be free to speak our minds. Europe has taken us in an absolutely terrifying and totalitarian direction.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank God for the First Amendment here.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Schellenberger, thank you very much.
In similar fashion, Russian authorities are expanding their digital control by blocking VPN services and restricting or slowing access to major global platforms. This move further consolidates online oversight under state-run telecommunication providers and is part of an ongoing strategy to tighten the Kremlin's grip on the country's digital space. Russian internet users are increasingly confined to a government-curated Runet or Russian internet, with state-approved news and platforms dominating the space. Dozens of VPN providers are now inaccessible in Russia. Although popular with both opposition and pro-Kremlin voices, Telegram is under tighter monitoring, with certain channels flagged or blocked. Foreign platforms, such as Meta's Facebook and Instagram or X, remain banned or heavily restricted.
If you're a Christian man, listen closely. You must be dangerous, a threat to every lie, every force that dares to rise against the truth of Christ. Look around. Over 2 billion claim the name of Christ. But how many of us are willing to stand when our faith is mocked, when truth is challenged? The churches are replaced, when the name of our Lord is dragged through the mud. Where's the spine? Where are the men who will speak when the world spits in the face of our King? They desecrate what's holy. They mock the sacred. Should they not have a look at us and fear? Let me tell you something. Without strength, your goodness is worthless. A man who poses no threat to the enemy is not a virtue to the Lord. He's a liability, and if that stings, good, it should. Do you really think evil backs down just because a man loves God? No, it doesn't back down just because you sing worship songs on Sunday. It laughs at men who talk about love, but lack the guts to defend it. And if men won't protect truth, if he won't guard what is sacred, then the faithless will overrun us. Conversion will come. Not because their argument is better, but because we were too docile to resist. Evil thrives where men stay passive. The enemy longs for a faith filled with such men, obedient, yet harmless, devoted, yet silent. Because without strength, even devotion loses weight. Just look at Europe, once rich in Christian roots, now overrun by those who serve another master. They preach against Christ, persecute his followers. And it all began when they failed to guard what they let in. It is the ultimate cautionary tale to never compromise your faith. They saw the Christians and saw no threat. That's all. Remember, Jesus wasn't soft. He was wise. He cast out demons. He rebuked leaders. He flipped tables. He was gentle with the broken, but ruthless with evil, and didn't come to please the world. He came to conquer it. And your heavenly Father, he's not tamed. He's a consuming fire, a righteous judge, the Lion and the Lamb. And you, man of God, were called to have that balance, not one or the other. There should be nothing about you that is harmless. Not to sin, not to lies, not to the world. Christ demands ultimate loyalty, which means if someone mocks the gospel, distorts truth, or invades the holy, you must have the spine and conviction to rise against it. You don't get to be weak and still claim to serve the King. That's not humility. Be the man with the spine. We must not decrease in number, nor succumb to the noise and rising power of the faithless who serve another master. Because the truth is, if you won't fight for your faith, you'll lose it. The world doesn't need more passive men pretending to follow Jesus. It needs men who are powerful and dangerous, who will go to any length to preserve his name. Be gentle enough to love, strong enough to lead, dangerous enough to destroy evil. Your father is your honor, your ego. His land was not meant for enemies to thrive on. You come from a sacred bloodline, the spiritual lineage of Christ, the Son of God, the Lamb who was slain, the one whose blood you owe your life to. So protect it, protect the lineage, protect the truth. Don't forget whose you are and who saved you. Let no foolish man drag our faith into decay. Let no coward distort what generations bled to defend. And let the world know who you believe in, the God of the Bible, the Holy One, the consuming fire, the risen King. You are not just a man. You are the will of the heaven.